Good afternoon, everybody. This is kind of weird recording this early in the day. Welcome to the Bird and Goal podcast. Bird and Goal from the 17. That is week 17. We're getting there. We are so close to the end, Cardinals fans. We can almost taste it. Our suffering is almost done. We're back at it again, talking about another loss. That makes it, what, 8 in a row now to the Cincinnati Bengals?
Yeah, I think at least eight, right? Yeah,
I
eight
think
in a
so.
row. Eight in a row, and what? One of their last 14.
Yeah, so not good stuff, but what do you expect in a lost season like this? Well, I can't tell you what you could have expected this season was playoffs, because we were flirting with that idea last season, and then it just kind of took a nosedive from there. Um, and you would have thought that this year we would be in the mix. At this point in the game, we'd be preparing to see where we're going to go. If we're going to host a home game, what the deal is. And now that you look back at the big picture of this season, we are leagues away from ever being able to not only compete in the NFC, but even just competing in our own division. San Francisco, Seattle, and the Rams are playing meaningful games. Trying to clinch that number one seed. I don't know what the standings are looking like as of right now. I know the Rams did lose. But yeah, you would have thought that the Cardinals would be in that mix, but instead we're just letting offensive linemen get yak on us. Happy birthday, Cody Ford, though, a former Cardinals legend.
Yeah, it's the same old Cardinals. We've been doing this now. This is week 17. So after those first 2 weeks and a couple of close losses, it's just been more of the same. And I think every Cardinal fan is more than ready now for the season to be over.
Yep, I think we're all just kind of hoping that maybe I don't know what the situation's like with the last game of the year. If somehow we can come away with the fourth pick, is that a possibility? Do you know?
I believe it is. Yeah, it depends on the strength of schedule between us and who is it that's in front of us? The Titans.
Because as it stands, we do have the fifth pick, um, and it's kind of a crapshoot. You can go any position, and I would say it's a good pick. It's a position of need because we thought we revamped this D line, and they've kind of underproduced outside of Josh Sweat, who could have been better at times, but did kind of earn his pay. Glad to have him. Everybody else is a little lackluster, in my opinion. They kind of started strong and it did fizzle out. Of course, you could say that the injury. You're kind of playing a hockey line of substitution packages because you don't have healthy guys. You also have guys that didn't even sniff the field, like Bilal Nichols, and I actually L.J. Collier did make his season debut, I believe.
Yeah, you've got him and Justin Jones as well that they had to release from IR because they had too many guys hurt.
Yeah. So yeah, you could go D line. I don't necessarily think that it's should, but
Mhm.
if you're looking at this roster, any position would make a difference. A good football player at 5 would really make a difference. That's
Yeah.
how bad this roster is. Um, but of course, the strategy we've kind of been in the consensus with you and I is just try to get whatever good right tackle you can. Try to build up that O line for your future quarterback that you're probably going to get in 27.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's the best road forward. The best path for the Cardinals is to address the offensive line early and often, come April, as well as in free agency. I know there's a couple of guys. I'm not sure. I think they could be free agents, but they could be re-signed. So they definitely need to keep addressing the trenches for the Cardinals.
Oh, we've got some people in the chat. Just want to say hello to Silver Wolf. He said, "Let's go. We appreciate you being here. I know it's a little early. But it's New Year's Eve. We've got some plans later. That's why I'm off camera. I gotta do this and then get glam and all that good stuff. So appreciate you being here, joining us. Felix says Sweat has been an awful pick. He has never showed up in high leverage moments when needed. He is a Jacoby Brissett of pass rushers. That's an interesting take, and fair. I know if you got to have these downs where we've been very awful on third down all year. So it's like when you need a sack, no one's has really stepped up. I think in those situations, I recall more Calais Campbell being the guy rather than Sweat. But again, that's a decimated group of guys that you would kind of hope would do better. I'm sure Sweat's eating a couple double teams too. So
Yeah, definitely seen a lot of attention from the offensive line and the game plan from the opponents each week. You're still missing that other guy, the guy opposite him. He's not a TJ Watt or a Myles Garrett type of guy who can just wreck a game. He's going to need another person, and a Robin to his Batman. So I think that's also another need. The Cardinals need to figure out who that's going to be. If it's going to be BJ Olajari, or if it's going to be a free agent, or if they go and try to trade for a pass rusher who might be disgruntled up there in Vegas.
Cough, cough.
But yeah, there's definitely, Calais is Calais, and Dalvin Tomlinson was brought in as just a gap filler run stopper. So like it's kind of malpractice to think he's going to come in and just like be this
Sack
monster up front and have 4 or 5 sacks from the defensive tackle position in the scheme. But we did see that from Walter Nolan. Walter Nolan, before he got hurt, was as advertised when he was out there on the field, and now losing him with his injury for a while is definitely going to suck. So you're kind of back in the same boat again.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. We do not have any updates on Walter Nolan. There was someone hinting around on Twitter, trying to ask Darren Urban if he had surgery. I think it was just more of someone trolling him about injury and surgical timelines. But yeah, we don't know, and that's the thing that's frustrating with Jonathan Gannon is he's not very transparent on any player injuries, and I feel that's kind of, for a lack of a better word, shitty as a head coach to not be transparent about things like that. Because even outside of football, these are guys that we care about as people. You want, you want the best for them. You want them healthy. So just an update, especially
and they've definitely said that it's been a knee the whole way through. And then, today when they said that they both had surgery, who was it? I think it was Gannon was the one that was talking about it. Didn't want to say anything more than just his knee, out of respect for the player. So is that a BJ Olajari everything in his knee, or is it just his ACL? Because if it is, we saw how long it took for BJ to finally get back on the field. So hopefully it's not the whole knee. So we don't lose Walter Nolan for 18 months like we did with BJ.
Felix said Gannon confirmed both Williams and Nolan had surgery. Okay. I know he did do a presser today. I did not catch any of that. Haven't really been on Twitter to see kind of what the guys like Theo Mackey are good at picking out the importance of those pressers, the need to know things. So interesting to see what the severity is and what the timeline is. Are they going to be starting next season? Is it going to be a thing of they're coming back in October, November, things like that? That we don't know, because everything that Gannon has said about any injury, whether it's Trey Benson or even Kyler, it's been week to week, little by little, day to day, whatever coach jargon that you get out of him.
Yeah. Frustrating.
Yeah. So who knows? They could have, have had both their legs amputated and we won't know. Iona says, Happy New Year. Thank you. Happy New Year. I hope everybody's having a safe, fun holiday. Yeah, everything that we had predicted last episode kind of came. I should have picked a higher score out of the Bengals than I gave them credit for. I think someone did say that they were going to drop 40 on us. They almost did. You got your final score 37-14. Of course, most of those points came in garbage time. Yeah, Joe Burrow did not play the whole fourth quarter. So, what a day he had. What a day I had watching Joe Burrow play football. So unserious to the point where after Cody Ford caught that pass, that the crowd was like chanting for him to run it in for the touchdown. Like you're wanting your offense lineman to run it in for a touchdown. Like that's unserious that the Cardinals are.
Yeah. No, and it was all long drives from the Bengals. The Cardinals couldn't get off the field. The defense was on the field for almost 41 minutes of the football game, which is a long time. But yeah, 12-play drive, 12-play drive, 10-play drive, 11-play drive, 10-play drive, all with touchdowns on every one but one of those. So, the defense couldn't get off the field. The Bengals were converting 66% of third downs. They were 10 for 15 from the ball game. So, it's kind of just had their way. And, for a defense that now is banged up and has also not been good all year, now they have to play the whole game. And the Bengals were basically completely healthy offensively. So it's definitely an end of the season garbage time game for the Bengals to put up 430 yards of offense and 4 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns.
And then on the flip side, I mean, you watched half of the game with me. Everybody's checked out. The tackling effort is poor. The tackling has been atrocious all season.
Mm-hmm.
But, exceptionally poor this game. No one stood out to me that looked good other than Trey McBride and Michael Wilson, which, those are givens.
I also thought that Cody Simon had a great game. He had 15 tackles. He had a half a sack. So, he's still new to the green dot. Definitely still looks like it might be moving too quick for him. He has his moments where he'll miss a tackle or fall off a guy, but, not bad from the rookie to put up numbers like that to Sunday.
Yeah. Obviously he's going to have his rookie moments, but I've been really high on him. So I think that he's going to be great. It's baptism by fire where, Mac Wilson goes down. You are now the green dot. You are also a rookie, but, he had high pedigree coming out of college, MVP of the national game. So I've liked what I've seen out of him, and I will give him grace. We're not winning any games, so yeah, brother. Like, if you miss a tackle here, you get lost here. It's gonna happen. Growing pains, get it out in a lost season, rather than we're fighting for a playoff spot and you're the guy that missed the crucial tackle, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Will Johnson had a rough game. You're going to have a rough game when your assignment is Ja'Marr Chase. He had a pretty good play, like early, I think it was the first drive of the game. He made a pretty good play on the ball, but if it was any other receiver, not Ja'Marr Chase, he's batting that away. But, Ja'Marr Chase just wins those 50-50 battles, unfortunately. I felt like Denzel Burke had a okay game. His assignment was T. Higgins. He made some great plays on the ball, but, poor tackling. And that's the thing. It's like you're in these situations where, like, yeah, like your hand works pretty good, but your tackling sucks because you're playing these soft zones and you got to make these tackles and you're getting turned around and you're getting shook by Cody Ford. But I would say, looking at the season as a whole, unfortunately, I do kind of have to give Denzel Burke more of the nod as better rookie campaign than Will Johnson. Not to say Will Johnson's going to have a shitty career, but, he didn't really flash like I thought he would outside of the first week.
Yeah, no, he started definitely strong. I know the injury might have derailed it a little bit, but, Denzel Burke was, at the end of the draft last year in 2024, the look-ahead drafts, we're having both him and Will Johnson going in the top 5. So he definitely fell a lot further after his year at Ohio State, but he was still a guy that was regarded pretty highly and talented. So, still you don't follow the 5th round, 6th round because you're bad or because you're so good. It you do have some flaws, and you have seen him be okay and also get beat. So that's what you expect to see out of that day 3 pick. And that being said, he's gotten to play a lot this year because of the injuries in front of him. So, next year you feel confident as him being that 4th or 5th corner in the room, not the second guy in the room.
Yeah. I also noticed, I thought Max Melton was still hurt, but he didn't start. He played special teams this last game. I don't think he played against Atlanta, but there's something interesting going on there. I know somebody had tweeted something to the effect of like he's a bust, which he himself responded to and said like if only you knew like what's happening behind closed doors or something to that effect. So I thought that was kind of interesting, a little cryptic tweet that will not get expanded upon, obviously, but it's just interesting because I kind of feel like he's going the way of like Keitrell Clark, where like you start and then you just kind of disappear out of the good graces of the coaching staff. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on there, but that's an interesting thing that I've noticed.
Yeah. Him tweeting also his otter emote, which I did not know, not savvy enough to understand what the otter emote meant. So we'll
Any of the
definitely
kids in
see.
the chat that know what that means, please let us know.
Yeah.
Uh,
But, like you said, very similar to Keitrell Clark last year, where he started playing because of the injuries in front of him, and then he disappeared at the end of the season and was on the bench. So maybe, like you said, we don't know what's going on. Maybe they want to see other guys because next season you imagine you'd get Sean Murphy Bunting back and you get Star Thomas back. And I'm not sure how long Garrett Williams will be out, but there's a third corner that we're down to, I believe. I'm drawing a blank on who the third starter was, but it's a guy who might not be on the team next year. If Keitrell Clark, if they like him more, or it's going to be you better be solid playing special teams the last couple games of the year because next year you're going to be that 5th, 6th corner on the depth chart because guys will be back healthy and you have to play special teams.
Yep, that's the only way you can get back in the good graces if you play special teams. Felix says it's been confirmed that Williams had an Achilles surgery. Oh yeah, I did know that was Achilles. That's right. I just wasn't sure what exactly the Walter Nolan stuff was. I feel like if it was an ACL, they would have disclosed that, right?
Well, that's what he said today. He said he wouldn't confirm if it was his ACL out of respect for Walter. So maybe it is, maybe it is not.
See, I don't know.
But that leads me to believe it is probably more than just the ACL.
ACL, MCL, the whole knee has been severed off. The pass blocking says we're sorry about the way we were this year. We robbed y'all. Yeah. Exactly. We've been robbed. Shrev says he loves the discussion and then he's glad we came to Dallas for the high point of the season. Shrev, that is the last time I've known happiness. And I've never felt anything relatively close since. So thank you for hosting us. We will be back in Texas sometime this coming year for sure. Felix says it's ironic since Jacoby took over as a starter, the offense has been worse than nearly every metric available. They have scored only 18.5 points per game. Yeah, it's a little bit of it. I've seen those arguments. It's a give and take. Yeah, your pass catchers are seeing a lot of love, and again, that's most of it is due to your lack of run game. But you're still not scoring the points that you on paper you should have, given that everybody's having these 100+ yard games. But it's hard to talk about at this point. We can't harp on the what ifs with Kyler because I'm beyond that because I know he's not going to be here next year. You can argue that maybe we win a game or two more if he was playing. You can also argue that, maybe he ran most of those games and you're still not knowing what Michael Wilson is. You still don't know. Trey McBride doesn't beat the record that he set on Sunday. So it's just a lot of what ifs. Like, yeah, guys are getting empty stats with Jacoby. We're still not winning, but it's all dysfunctional all around, and it all starts with coaching. At the end of the day, it is all coaching. Drew Petzing is not a good offensive coordinator. He is no longer on contract, so I don't think he's going to see another contract. Unfortunately, all signs from all the insiders on Twitter are pointing to Gannon will be here next year. And we don't know what that'll look like with the new offensive coordinator. Maybe it's slightly better, maybe it's worse.
Yeah, I think there's a very high chance you'll get new coordinators on both sides of the ball. As much as we were optimistic about Nick Rallis at the start of the year and kind of liked what he was doing, I'm surprised we didn't see Gannon take the play calling back over from him. Um, I think both of them will be gone. I'm not kind of upset anymore. I know at the beginning of the year, everyone was kind of worried that Rallis was going to be this next, young hot shot defensive coordinator that gets head coaching nods and maybe gets a gig in, going into 26 or if not 27. He's the favorite for a bunch of jobs, but it's clear now that he's going to have more desire from the unemployment line than the head coaching market. We know that Pensing's contract's up, so I don't believe he'll be retained, which means they've got to go find an offensive coordinator, which means a new offense, which means a whole bunch of different questions. What do you want to build? What kind of offense does this guy run? There are pieces here. You've seen Michael Wilson, who's emerged as this, wide receiver 1.5. I don't know if I'd call him a 1, but he's definitely right up there. And you still have Marv and you have Trey McBride. And what do you do in the running back room with James Conner and Trey Benson? There's definitely pieces here. If you want to, I don't know if it's the most exciting, most desirable job. I haven't seen all the, we'll see who else gets fired if LaFleur gets fired in Green Bay. They've got some pieces up there. You have Vegas, who I would be surprised if they do bring Pete back, but they have Janty and Brock Bowers and Michael Myers, so they need a quarterback, but they also have some pieces that are kind of exciting. So I'm not sure where Arizona's offense would rank as far as attractiveness for a play caller, but when he comes in, you've got to change everything again. Like when you bring in a new defensive coordinator and he wants to go from the 4-3 to the 3-4, it's a different personnel ask from the roster. So if you bring it in right now, the Cardinals are a team that want to run the ball. They want to work to play action, and right now we can't run the ball. So if you're a team that's heavily built on running the ball, and eating the clock and time of possession, and you can't do that, you're not going to win games. And we've seen that. The Cardinals this year are 29th in rushing yards per game. Last year they were 7th. They were 2nd in the league in yards per carry. This year I don't even know, but it's not going to be very high. So for a team that wants to do that, you've not been able to do that. So your whole identity is gone. It's out the door. So we'll have to see what the next guy wants to do with this team. If it's a Stefanski or if it's a LaFleur or all these guys who might rebound if they get fired, and Mike McDaniels, we'll have to see what this offense looks like. But there are pieces there to go into 26 to kind of be excited from an offensive standpoint.
And I think if you're taking this offensive coordinator position, your number one objective should absolutely be try to get Marvin Harrison Jr. the ball and get him on the level of where he was drafted. Because, it has been reported that he is done for the season, which we could have predicted that. But you have to justify this guy being a number 4th overall pick, because it's unfortunate that you've been touted as one of the best wide receiver prospects in 10 years to come out of the draft, and you're putting up pedestrian numbers and you just look lost and, no confidence. That should be the number one objective, is to try to get him to be a pro ready, because, Petzing and company did not do that. And I don't think they were ever going to be the scheme or the fit to do that. It's what I can, to sum up Drew Petzing and his relation with Marvin Harrison and Kyler. It's like it's trying to fit square pegs into round holes. You're trying to make Kyler this pocket passer that he's not. You're trying to make Marvin. You have Marvin Harrison Jr. that you don't know how to get the ball to. It's just we were just set up for failure once this whole regime took over from the start. I agree with you, Felix. The run game did take a nosedive when Kyler was playing. We did lose James Conner in week 3. So he's got that grace in my book. And hey, like I'm still a fan, but I'm just realistic, and I know that his time here is over, and I do want him to go somewhere where he can thrive. But it just all came down to Drew Petzing was never the fit, and it's frustrating when people say like, oh well, Jonathan Gannon inherited this quarterback. Like, see what he can do with the quarterback that he got to help pick. And it's like, why would you take this job if you know that this guy's under contract and he's been the guy? That's my issue.
Yeah, and it's like, well, JG isn't going to be an offensive guy who's going to call the plays. So the guy he brings in as his OC, you have to feel confident or comfortable with it that Kyler Murray can run the offense you want to run.
Yeah. So, it's so frustrating because we've sat through a 3-year rebuild, nothing happened, and then now they treat it like it's just a quick fix that we're this away, we're that away, but we're not. It's almost like we need another rebuild. We need a rebuild from the rebuild.
You've not even finished rebuilding, and you got to rebuild again.
Well, he said, agreed, 99, not coming back. Just wants folks to acknowledge that Jacoby was never better. Jacoby is a career backup that got thrusted into a starting position, and he has been proven why he is a career backup. Probably the best career backup that we've had since, Drew Stanton, but still it's Drew Stanton. Yeah, obviously he did show you at times that why he was a backup, never the starter. And he's had plenty of chances to be a starter in this league, and it just never worked out. But, he's under contract. He will be here next year unless we do something crazy. And I'm all in favor of running it back with him because, like I said, I'm pretty sure Kyler's gone. I think the relationship on both ends have soured. And you just kind of run it back, get a decent draft spot for 27, and pick up your next quarterback. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we're just air out your grievances, everybody. We've got another couple minutes before we'll head out here. We're keeping this short for New Year's Eve. Any burning questions you want to know? And here and now. As long as Monty is here, this team is screwed, he says. Now, I have admitted, I can't talk. I admitted last pod, that my feelings for Monty has started to turn a little bit. It started out was, he's done great. Not the best at nailing our free agents, but I've liked his draft picks. As time has progressed more and more, his first draft is looking kind of ugh. This draft, there are some promising guys, that have shown flashes. We don't know what their full potential could be, what they can look like with a little further development. So I give them credit for that. And, they're big program guys. They're not some randoms from the sticks that, you like their 40 time at the combine. These are smart guys, high football knowledge, high character, pieces. So I've liked this previous draft. What are your thoughts? Because we haven't touched bases, and I know you're a guy that likes to give the GMs the benefit of the doubt, or you trust that they know what they're doing because that's their job.
Yeah, no, like you said, they touched on it. They went after all big school guys. I mean, the smallest one was Keaton Crawford, who was at Nevada, but before that, he was at Texas and got dismissed. So they're all big programs. I've liked what I've seen out of all of them. I know Hayden Connor's gotten to play a little bit here, the 6th-round pick out of Texas. He's got to play a little bit more as he's gotten back healthy. So he might be that cog in the middle of the interior offensive line depth going forward, like the John Gaines and I don't believe Will Hernandez should be coming back. You know, it was a great story, but I don't, you know, the interior of the offensive line needs a remodel, a facelift. Maybe Hayden Connor is that guy. You know, he's got position flexibility across the offensive line. He had 40 plus starts at Texas. So, you know, again, probably the most disappointed guy that I've seen from this draft class this year, you know, has been Jordan Burch, just because he looked, you know, nice in preseason, flashed some there, and then has just kind of drifted off into the background. There's not been a guy who has, you know, kind of made his, you know, stated his case opposite Josh Sweat. So, you know, maybe I would have liked to see him kind of get more of an opportunity or earn more of an opportunity to see if he is more than just like a Zaven Collins depth rotational pass rush guy like Baron Browning and him and Zaven. That being said, you know, the top two guys I feel good with. You know, you saw enough out of Walter Nolan. Granted, he's going to be gone now for some time with his injury. And Will Johnson looked good at the start of the year, but, you know, has been a little banged up and has kind of fallen off, whether it's the rookie wall or, you know, if now that there's enough on tape, you know, he'll have some stuff to correct next year. Cody Simon, we touched on getting thrown into the fray early with Matt going down. So definitely baptism by fire as far as him and Denzel Burke go. And then Keaton Crawford, I believe, is just a depth guy, a rotational, you know, maybe third safety, special teamer, but not a bad pick there. I know it's 1 year in, so it's kind of crazy to be over here like, oh, he's a bust. This was a terrible draft. We can go back a couple years ago for sure before you start talking about how before you start talking about like busts or not. I feel like that first draft, you know, you can finally now start talking about, you know, if it was a bad draft or a bad class, that's where I feel the criticism becomes fair, not these, you know, this draft and last year's draft, because like those guys are still figuring out the NFL. But yeah, if you go back to that 03 draft, you know, Paris, as advertised, he's a top 3 tackle, top 4 left tackle in the NFL. BJ, definitely a whiff on that. Granted, his injuries have made him not see the field at all. Garrett Williams, before his Achilles injury, I think everybody's very pleased with Garrett Williams. Michael Wilson, I think we're all pleased with that. I'm not sure if I'm calling that a bust or a bad pick. John Gaines, you know, they drafted him as an interior offensive lineman who may play center. He's kind of not gotten to crack the starting role anywhere. So he's just a depth interior offensive line guy. I think he was playing left guard and center the last 2 weeks. Clayton Tune sucks. Owen Papo is just a special teams guy. Keitrell Clark has played some before he got hurt. And Dante Stills was a great pick in, you know, the 200s, was at fifth, sixth round. So I'm not sure if his first draft sucked. You know, you've got a franchise left tackle, a starting corner, a starting wide receiver, a depth corner, a guy who's going to give you reps in the defensive line room. So I don't know what more do you, that's a hit. That draft's a hit. You know, the GMs in the NFL. I don't think any GM in the NFL would not want that draft.
Well, I'll give you the opposite end of the spectrum. It could be worse scenario. You could be the Vikings, who don't have any guys that they've drafted. I forgot that I know you know the stat because you've argued with this on Twitter, but I know it's something to the effect of they don't have like anybody that they drafted on their team.
Yeah, no, the Vikings suck.
Outside of Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, I had a gentleman say that he wished the Cardinals could draft like the Vikings, and I said, no, thank you. Why would you want to do that? The Vikings are horrendous at drafting. You know, there's a lot of misses. You know, a GM that hits on 40% of his picks is a Hall of Fame GM. And anything past, I've told you this, and I've told our group on Twitter that like anybody past the 4th round is just a crapshoot. Like you're taking athletic freaks, you're taking guys who have a lot of starts, who have a bunch of position flexibility. That's what you're doing in past the 4th round. So you've got to hit on those first couple rounds. And I would say the fair criticism is probably 24 after Marv, but no one's gonna be mad. I think we were all excited that it was Marvin Harrison Jr. at 4, so that's fair. The Darius Robinson his career's been sidelined and derailed by everything else. So it definitely sucks. I feel the criticism for 24 is fair, but there's definitely some guys that he got later in the draft that have played well. Isaiah Adams has played well. He's put together a couple of good starts the last couple of weeks as well. So
I do agree with that.
Again, it's a guy, these guys are in their second year in the NFL, so it's crazy to be like, bust, terrible draft, bust. We're not even to, 14 starts, 15 starts for Isaiah Adams in his career yet. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, yep, terrible guy.
Yeah. When you put it in perspective like that, could be worse. Let's see. 1027 Sun says, I'm born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona my whole life, 1992 into 2025. 6 with Arizona sports, also Coyotes gone. We feel your pain. Unlike somebody here that I'm looking at on the screen, I was born and raised here, so I know your pain. I'm just kidding. I'm just giving you crap. But when did you move here? 03?
Yes.
And you've been a season ticket holder since then, so you have sat and had front row seats to witness.
Yes, I've not missed a Cardinal game since we moved here.
Yeah. Let's see.
Fryer played left tackle for a little bit last week, but before him, it was not him. I don't remember who played opposite.
Yeah, surprisingly, this offensive line has played a little bit better as of late, but again, a little too late, and unfortunately, you don't have a good running back to throw out there. I was surprised to see Michael Carter kind of getting all the carries, opposed to Amari DiMercato. I know people have strong feelings about Amari, but it was just interesting because Michael Carter wasn't doing a whole lot. They could have at least thrown DiMercato in the mix just to try to get something going because, the game didn't derail super early like, that Rams game or whoever was that scored in the first 2 minutes of the game. I mean, it's a tough task to go up against Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, trying to have a shootout with that kind of offense.
Yeah.
You didn't put up any kind of fighting chance from the start. Team looks checked out. I don't know. I don't know if the locker room is lost, but I know when you're losing and it's this late in the season, it's like, well, here we go again.
Yeah.
Here we go again. Next week we play the Rams, who just lost to the Falcons. We'll see. We'll see who's the backup? Was it Jimmy Garoppolo?
Yeah, Garoppolo's the backup.
Yeah, so we'll see if we're going to be playing a Jimmy G-led Rams team to close out the season.
Yeah, and I believe McVay's already come out and said that the starters are going to play, so we're not getting Jimmy. Well, we may see Jimmy Garoppolo when they're up by 35 points, but
yeah,
you will get Matt Stafford to start the season. Or to start the game, sorry.
Yes. So hang tight, Cardinals fans. We are one game away, and then we can start talking about who we like in the draft. The game was over when it was 23-7 with about 5 minutes left in the second quarter. Now, I was watching the game, and I remember there being some, I don't remember specifically, but just a little bit of clock mismanagement. I think I forgot what happened, but something happened to where it's like, all right, we're doing this. We're not trying to at least score because we did get the ball to start the second half. So just little things like that that's irritating. It's like, you're not completely out of the game, but you're also not trying to win the game, which I know. Week 17, you're more focused on a draft pick, but coaching staff would like to win a game to at least keep your job. But I guess that's how comfortable Gannon is with his job security. Accelerator says the Cards are going straight to the Super Bowl next year. Listen, if Jonathan Gannon was not our coach, I would say I would be a little more optimistic about that take because we've seen it. We've seen, first to worst. Look at the Bears. Look at what has Ben Johnson has done with that team. You know, we thought Caleb sucked and he's a bust and he's looking like a competent quarterback. I'm not going to say he's good because he does do some boneheaded things when I do catch a Bears game. But you know, you're year two, you're still learning, you're getting um, a better offensive, or I'm sorry, a better head coach. So who's to say that he can't become a better quarterback or a good quarterback? But you know, coaching matters. Like what Dan Campbell did with the Lions. Look at other examples that I can't think of off the top of my head.
Your boy Liam Cohen down in Jacksonville.
There you go, Mr. Duval. So that's why I don't have a lot of confidence that we can turn it around because we're not a guy away, we're not anything away. We're going to need a new head coach, and we're going to need a facelift on the offense side of the ball outside of Trey McBride, Michael Wilson.
Yep, a lot of questions to be answered this offseason. You know, definitely feel like the criticism is fair for Monty, but I think realistically the seat is not warm at all. So, you know, I think after April and this group of free agency and going into next year, I think it'll start getting warm. But for right now, you know, he's not going anywhere.
And, you know, it's going to be a tough ask. You've got a lot to do this offseason because what you thought was a fixed defensive line is not. You have injuries in your running backs. You know, James Conner is not getting any younger. Trey Benson, unfortunately, did not pop like we all hoped he would to be, you know, the guy to take over the reins at running back. You need a new offensive line. You know, your corners are hurt. Your safeties are getting old and just not playing up to par. Your linebackers are kind of non-existent. But, you know, like I said, you might have something out of Cody Simon. Who knows? But it's just a lot. I don't know what the cap's looking like. And then you also have to try to figure out the best deal you can get out of Kyler.
Right.
For Kyler, I should say. So, you know, we'll see how Monty handles that. If it's completely botched all around, then yes, you can fire up the pitchforks. But that's all I have to say. We got to get out of here. We got to start getting ready. I just want to say thank you to everybody in the comments. I was actually pleasantly surprised. I know it's earlier in the day. It is a holiday. We appreciate you all for being here, for engaging. I hope you all have a safe one. Please do not drink and drive. We will be back next week to close out the season. And I hope you all have a happy new year. Stay safe.
Alrighty.
I thought maybe you had a nice message for the folks, Colby.
No, you said it all, dude.
All right. Good night.